All right, one of the issues that Mike asked me to talk about is he wanted me to talk just briefly about Social Security and how it interacts with PERSI. And so I'm gonna talk briefly about that. Now, I want to tell you this. Melody Hodges is one of our best people at PERSI, and she's came here with me the last couple of years, and when we were coming in, she says, you know, I don't know why you bring me because I never get asked any questions. So she is an expert. She is an expert on Social Security, okay? If you have any questions, ask Melody. All right. You know, I know that right now you're considering possibly opting out of Social Security, and so I just want to explain, if you opt out, does not mean that you can't retire, okay? But PERSI was built to partner with Social Security and with supplemental retirement earnings to enable you to sustain your standard of living in retirement. Now, here's what that means. PERSI, as a rule, will give you about 60% of your high 42-month wages. So if you were to retire and all you had was PERSI, you're going to have, if you were making on an average, your high average was $100,000, you're now going to have $60,000 to retire on. So that will be your annual income as you go through the rest of your life, plus any COLAs you get. Social Security gives you an additional, and it says 40%. For most of our people, it's about 22 to 23%, I believe is right. Social Security would add to the 60% and would raise you, and when we look at statistics, it's going to raise you somewhere between 75% of your high 42-month average and 80, I think is it 88% I think it's 88%. So if you were to get Social Security and PERSI together and you had a $100,000 average, you would go somewhere up to $75,000 or $88,000. Okay, so if you really want to sustain your standard of living and you want to have $100,000, you cannot get there with just PERSI and Social Security. You have to have supplemental retirement income to get you the rest of the way, to gain that other 12 to 25%. So if you look at it just from that perspective, you'd say, well, heck, we can't go out of Social Security. We'll never be able to sustain ourselves in retirement. Well, that's not true. You can do the same thing without being in Social Security. You just have to put more into supplemental retirement. Now, there is a little more risk in doing that, but there's also, with risk, sometimes there's reward. There's the ability that maybe you will make more money than you would have in Social Security, and maybe rather than just getting to 100% of your high 42-month average, you could actually improve your standard of living if you made more money on your supplemental earnings. So here's the key. What you need to do, whether it's Social Security or anything, you need to put the same amount of money away, and you need to average at least 7.25% return to match what you're getting. With Social Security, if PERSI went away, it'd be the same story, okay? So rather than focusing on Social Security, I'll just dump the whole thing in. If we went to a DC plan and there was no Social Security, what you would need to do to be able to retire successfully is you would need to put away the same amount of money that you are putting away and that the employer is putting away. You'd need to put that exact same amount in today, and you would need to average 7.25% return for your life. If you can do that, and people do that, if you can do that, you will be able to achieve the same results in have the same income in retirement that you have now with the partnership between Social Security, PERSI, and retirement earnings. Now, I will tell you, get a good financial planner or financial advisor. There are advisors out there who make more than 7.25%. There are a lot of them that don't. Our tendency sometimes is to go with a family member or a friend, and I'm not saying that family members and friends aren't going to make you 7.25% because everybody's related to somebody. But you need to make sure when you put your money away, and even if you stay in Social Security, you still got to make up that 12 to 25%. So with supplemental earnings, you need to make sure you're with a good investment person. Now, maybe you're good at investing, but that's the key. And we've went through that exercise because that's the message we're going to take to the legislature to explain to them if they want to go to a DC plan, they still need to pay the same amount of money into the plan. They have to pay the same amount to enable people to sustain themselves in retirement. All they're doing is they're transferring the risk of loss from the employers to you in a DC plan. That's the only difference. If they cut back, if they want to save money because they don't want to pay as much in employer contributions, they are jeopardizing your ability to achieve retirement. And I'll close with the one piece that I'm beginning to get them to understand. If we fail to provide citizens with the ability to retire, guess who picks up the bill? The state. And the corporations have not, and they've done it for a lot of reasons, but because they've not built retirement programs that enable their people to sustain themselves in retirement, we have a huge problem coming at us about 20 years down the road. Because many people who want to retire today and will want to retire in the next 10 to 15 years cannot sustain themselves in retirement. And so what's going to happen is it will force people to stay employed longer, which will drive up healthcare costs. And when they retire, there's a pretty good chance, because all of us are beginning to live longer, that sometime before they die, they will have to go on some form of subsistence. And so I feel that rather than looking at changing these pension systems to DC plans, we need to be looking across the fence and changing the systems that are DC plans today to something else. Now, we can make modifications. We don't have to be a DB plan. We can be a DB hybrid that has some options and helps share the risk. But the biggest issue we're facing as a nation is not these state-run or federal DB programs. It's the inability of the citizens of the United States today to sustain themselves in retirement. And that is a significant problem. And with that, I think I'm ready to take any questions that